Hola mi gente, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Alba Mal, me pueden decir Alba. El canal se llama Serial, estamos aquí para hablar de libros, algunos de ellos en español desde Puerto Rico. Hello, my name is Alba Mar, you may call me Alba. Channel name is Seriela. We're here to talk about books and some of them in Spanish from Puerto Rico. And today I am here with my September wrap up. So let's get to it because I have another video and then the captions to put in. Okay, the first book that I finished in September was Visitation by German author Jenny Erpenbeck. Now, this is the second German book this year that has brought me peace. I don't know what it is, but it has. Despite the fact that it touches sometimes, of course, with historical events that can be disturbing, that are disturbing, and that are tragic. There is something about this small book, this novella, that is a balm, was a balm for me during these depressing, turbulent times. And it has to do with the fact that it revisits constantly throughout the changing times in this particular locale in Germany. It maintains a stability, a routine, a repetition that is very, very soothing. There is a constant presence in this house because this is about, it starts off prehistorically so that you know that this is very much cemented with place, the importance of place and a locale. And then in this place, after a certain amount of time and tradition and culture, a grand house is built and its surrounding grounds, right? And with this house, almost always throughout the book, there is a gardener. And that gardener, even though he rarely speaks, I don't think he speaks in the whole book, is what lends stability to the book throughout. I really needed this book during these past 2 months. It didn't take me 2 months, of course, to read it, but it definitely gave me a lot of peace, and I came to love the place and feel a little sad at what happened at the end to the house and to the locality. Yeah, so I highly recommend Visitation. It's a great book. This was for Read German Books. Yeah. Oh, and I want to mention that I was motivated to get the book after watching Juan Ramos's video. Juan, who used to be Bookish Islander and now he's Juan Ramos. Yeah. He has a much better review of this. So I'm going to link his review down below. The second book that I finished after a long time and perusal is Cómo piensa colonizado, and this is the second volume of Cómo piensa colonizado, How Do Colonized Think, by Jesús Ortiz Torres, Puerto Rican artist, caricaturist, activist, all-around great person. I've just finished doing a video the other day about a mural that he and other artists have painted in Ponce. I will link that down below. Always very incisive. There he goes. One of these days we have to have a conversation, a discussion about the importance. Some of these I can't show you because of how very, very incisive they are. He has a whole section in which he criticizes the church. This alludes to a saying that we have in Puerto Rico: when things go really bad, you eat an electric cable. That's how bad things are. Se están comiendo un cable. Yeah, that's how things are in Puerto Rico sometimes. Yeah, so he has some very, very, there he has the privatization of everything in Puerto Rico. Education, our electrical grid, our telephone company had been privatized, our health system has been privatized. Yeah, there's his criticism of it. Yeah, Jesús is something else. I will link that video down below. And then I finished Paradise. Paradise, which is by Toni Morrison, for the Toni Morrison year-long read-along. And I will link Hannah's channel down below. Paradise by Toni Morrison is the story of a black town called Ruby that has decided to isolate itself from the rest of Oklahoma, fleeing from violence, rejection, and prejudice, and colorism. Yeah. But of course, what happens when you try to do that? Yeah, it backfires. Now, I want to make a disclaimer here. I read this. There are a lot of characters here, and I read it with the page on my laptop open to the list of characters, so that I could, remember who all of these characters were. And yeah, we had a wonderful discussion on Voxer about this book. And if you could hear Kim from K. Becker's books and her discussion of it, it was very enriching. Yeah, and it does read like a Bible. It does. The parables, the message, the scope of the stories involved. Yeah, I liked it. What can I say? Will there be one Toni Morrison book that I don't like? I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And then I read The Half Has Never Been Told, Slavery in the Making of American Capitalism by Edward E. Baptist. And I'm going to say right at the beginning that I'm going to link the C-SPAN presentation of this book, the video down below, in which the author introduces himself right at the beginning as the one that The Economist was talking about. Apparently, The Economist wrote a racist review of this book. Economist did not appreciate the viewpoints presented in this history, which is like economic history of the United States. And yeah, I said it, racist, R-A-C-I-S-T, The Economist review, and I will link The Economist review in the description box below so you can read it for yourself, especially the last line. Okay. This is a history that incorporates, that views the history, the economic history of the United States from the viewpoint of the enslaved people who enriched the United States during its foundation, during the cultivation of one of its greatest commodities, and how their labor enriched the slave holders, and not just the slave holders, but the financial investors on Wall Street and in Europe. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm still, enjoyed is not the word, of course. It was an enlightening educational experience. Weird, the construction of it is weird because he does the chapters in body parts. I'm reading the epilogue. The epilogue I am appreciating even more, and I only have a few more pages left to the epilogue, but the epilogue is also engrossing, engaging. The half has never been told. And then I read Hope in the Dark, which I've seen mentioned on Sarah's channel at Hardcover Hearts. So I wanted to give that a chance. And I did. Written by activist Rebecca Solnit. It was written during the years of the presidency of President Bush, the son in the dynasty, and it traces different social movements, right? The anti-war movement and the nuclear freeze movement, environmental movements, recalling past victories, no matter how small, to combat sometimes the feeling of defeat and pessimism that we might feel every once in a while. It's always helpful to remember that when you are involved in any kind of movement, it's for the long haul. And this is what the book is about. I am a firm believer that, yeah, you have to look at the long haul and celebrate whatever incremental victories you have on the way. So yeah, that was Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. And I want to mention something that I've been incorporating audiobooks with my reading of the physical copies. I did that with The Half Has Never Been Told. I think I borrowed the audiobook from on Overdrive, and same thing happened with Hope in the Dark. I borrowed the text, the ebook, on Overdrive, and I think the audiobook was on Scribd. Yeah, that helps keep me on track, people. It keeps me focused. The same thing occurred with Book of Ages, The Life and Opinions of Jane Franklin, written by Jill Lepore. Now, I read this. Why? Because we're doing a group read of these truths, and if you've visited Kim at K. Becker's Books and Karen Evans at her channel, there's a group of us reading These Truths, A History of the United States by Jill Lepore. And I will link Karen's announcement video because she has this schedule. And one of the invitations is to read a fiction book. It is divided into sections, and the first section deals with the Revolutionary War, colonization and Revolutionary War, And yeah, so one of the books that I read, the nonfiction book for that period, was the Jane Franklin book, and how I admire that woman. It's mostly based on the letters that Jane Franklin wrote to her brother. Now, Benjamin Franklin was the youngest son of 17, I think it was, children. And she was the youngest daughter. And she was married by the time she was 15, had 12 children. Only one of those children survived her. So she went through a lot of plagues. She lived through the Revolutionary War, the siege of Boston, while her brother was off in Europe. She really lived through the Revolutionary War. And even though she was married at 15, didn't have the schooling or the privileges that her brother had, they kept up a correspondence throughout both their lives, as long as he lived. So, yeah, it was enlightening and gratifying to read her opinions and to find such a strong woman despite the circumstances. Yeah. And then, last book, because of David at ThePoptimist, I will link his video down below. He was showing the Korean books that he had received in a hall, I think it was. And one of them was Kim Jiyoung, Born 1982, which I had already seen on Mel's channel at Mel's Bookland Adventures. And that's why I had it on my shelves when I saw the Poptimist video. So I sat down and I read it in 2 days. So good. And it's going to be a movie. It is a movie already. But it hasn't started streaming in my region yet. Kim Jiyoung is an ordinary Korean young mother who is now staying at home after having a brief career, and starts experiencing changes, disturbing changes. And in the midst of these changes, we see, because she represents women in South Korea, contemporary South Korea. This has caused a scandal in South Korea. I had no idea. And it goes through her life, which should be an ordinary, life in South Korea for a woman, except that life for women in South Korea, as life for women can be all over the world, is harrowing, can be very difficult, and especially with the misogyny and patriarchy. Yeah. What I appreciated about this book were the footnotes. It has footnotes about, for example, here, only male students were recommended. And she's talking about her job prospects and how that job hunt went, and their footnotes. Number 9, 2005 job market with keywords. And newspaper articles. Persistent discrimination based on gender and appearance in employment. Yeah, this caused a scandal in Korea. And I recommend it so that you can see. There are a couple of videos, of course, on YouTube about reviewing the book and also commenting on the scandal and the controversy that it caused. Yeah. Her husband decides to take her to a psychiatrist because of the changes that she's experiencing. It's as if she becomes possessed by the voices and the personalities of other women in her life. She like manifests them and loses herself. Great book. So that's it. That's it, people. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I will be back later on, hopefully, with my weekend reads, which are a lot. So take care. Wear your masks. And happy reading. Los quiero mucho, mi gente. Cuídense. Lean. Adiós.